In a move that has stunned the world, Hungary has become the first member of the European Union to officially join the BRICS bloc, a coalition that includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. This unprecedented step has sent ripples of uncertainty and concern throughout the corridors of power in both Brussels and Washington, as leaders scramble to assess the implications. The announcement has sent shockwaves through the heart of Europe, with policymakers and analysts alike questioning what this means for the future of the EU and its relationship with the rest of the world. Headlines blare with urgency, and officials in Brussels are left grappling with the reality that one of their own has crossed a line few thought possible. This move marks a seismic shift in the post-Cold War order, challenging not only the cohesion of the European project, but also the very idea of Western unity. The cracks in the EU's facade, once subtle, are now impossible to ignore, as Hungary's decision exposes deep divisions within the bloc. For decades, the EU and NATO expanded steadily eastward, drawing former Eastern Bloc countries into their fold. Now, for the first time, an Eastern-led bloc has managed to pull a member from the very heart of Europe, reversing a trend that has defined the continent since the fall of the Berlin Wall. Hungary's decision is not a sudden impulse, but the culmination of years of growing ideological divergence with Brussels. Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has long clashed with EU leaders over issues ranging from migration to rule of law, and now, rhetoric has transformed into a bold, concrete commitment to a new global alignment. The image of an EU flag at a BRICS summit is more than symbolic, it's a visual representation of a crack in Western unity, a sign that the once solid front of the EU is now open to challenge from alternative power centers. Hungary's accession to BRICS is a powerful symbol of a world in flux. The post-1991 era, defined by Western dominance and a unipolar order, is giving way to a fragmented multipolar reality, where alliances are fluid and loyalties are up for negotiation. BRICS, once dismissed as a loose collection of emerging economies with little in common, has now integrated a nation from its chief rival's camp. This is not just a diplomatic win for BRICS, but a signal that its influence is growing and its appeal is spreading even to the core of the Western world. The competition for allegiance is no longer confined to the developing world or the so-called global South. It has now penetrated the heart of the West itself. Citizens and politicians across Europe are debating what Hungary's move means for their own futures, and whether more countries might follow. Brussels now faces a profound dilemma. Should it punish Hungary and risk further fragmentation, or attempt to contain the crisis and preserve what remains of European unity? The stakes are high, and the choices made in the coming weeks could shape the continent for years to come. Hungary has demonstrated that EU membership is no longer a final destination, but rather a bargaining chip in a much larger global game. The country is positioning itself as a bridge, or perhaps a wedge, between East and West, leveraging its unique status for maximum advantage. The post-American world has arrived not with a whisper, but with a resounding Hungarian declaration. As the world watches, the question remains: is this the beginning of a new Iron Curtain, or the dawn of a truly multipolar era? To truly grasp the significance of Hungary's recent move, we first need to understand the evolving role of BRICS on the world stage and why it matters now more than ever. BRICS began as a simple investment acronym, but over the years, it has transformed into a powerful geopolitical coalition. In 2024, the group expanded dramatically, welcoming Saudi Arabia, Iran, the UAE, Egypt, and Ethiopia, nations that bring new energy and influence to the bloc. The core mission of BRICS is to amplify the voice of the global South, providing a platform for emerging economies to shape global policies and challenge the dominance of Western-led institutions like the IMF and World Bank. Unlike NATO or the European Union, BRICS is not a military alliance or a unified market. Instead, it's a partnership built on economic cooperation, mutual development, and the pursuit of financial independence from Western influence. Through the new development bank, BRICS funds vital infrastructure projects across the developing world, roads, bridges, and energy networks, without imposing the political conditions often attached to Western loans. Today, BRICS nations represent nearly half of the world's population and command over a third of global GDP when measured by purchasing power, making them a formidable force in the global economy. The group's membership is strikingly diverse, spanning vibrant democracies and powerful authoritarian states. Yet they are united by a shared ambition: to create a more multipolar world where no single power dominates. This diversity, and the promise of a new global order, attracts countries frustrated with Western policies. Even as BRICS faces its own internal disagreements and challenges, Hungary's decision to join, despite being a member of both the EU and NATO, marks a strategic win for BRICS. It adds a new layer of complexity to global politics, signaling that the influence of the global South is rising, and the world's balance of power is shifting before our eyes. Hungary's pivot to BRICS is the result of a decade-long clash with the EU. Orbán's government champions a liberal democracy and national sovereignty, clashing with Brussels' vision of shared liberal values. Legal battles, withheld EU funds, and Hungary's defiance on Russia and China have deepened distrust. Budapest sees EU pressure as political blackmail. Brussels sees Hungary as a spoiler undermining unity. Hungary's foreign policy has consistently broken EU ranks, especially on Russia and China. The protracted conflict made BRICS, with its emphasis on sovereignty and non-interference, an attractive alternative. Hungary is done fighting from within. It's building alliances without. Hungary's BRICS entry is a rupture in Europe's geopolitical order. For the first time since the Cold War, a Western nation has institutionally crossed into a rival bloc. Hungary now serves as a conduit for Chinese, Russian, and Indian influence inside the EU and NATO. This shatters the illusion of EU foreign policy unity and gives BRICS a de facto seat at the EU table. NATO faces a crisis. Can a member be aligned with its adversaries? Hungary's move validates BRICS as a political force, not just an economic one. It emboldens others to consider multi-aligned foreign policies. The aftershocks will force nations to reconsider their alliances. The European Union, home to around 450 million people, stands as one of the world's most influential economic blocs. With a combined GDP of nearly $18 trillion, the EU's strength comes from deep integration among its member states, harmonized regulations, and a single market that allows for the free movement of goods, services, and people. This economic superpower has built its reputation on stability, high living standards, and a commitment to democratic values, making it a magnet for investment and innovation. For countries like Hungary, EU membership has brought significant benefits. Access to EU funds has modernized infrastructure, supported local industries, and provided subsidies to farmers, while open borders have boosted trade and allowed Hungarian businesses to thrive in a vast market. On the other side, BRICS, a coalition now representing over 3.6 billion people, has rapidly gained global influence. By purchasing power parity, BRICS nations collectively surpass the G7 in economic output. The group includes some of the world's largest energy producers, like Russia and Brazil, and the fastest-growing consumer markets, such as India and China, making it a formidable force in the global economy. Demographically, the EU faces an aging population, with many countries experiencing declining birth rates and increasing median ages. In contrast, BRICS countries are generally younger, with large, dynamic workforces that promise future economic growth and innovation, positioning them as engines of global development in the coming decades. While the EU's influence is rooted in economic and regulatory power, its military capabilities are closely tied to NATO and, by extension, the United States. The EU itself lacks a unified military force, relying on transatlantic alliances for security and defense. BRICS, meanwhile, includes 3 nuclear powers: Russia, China, and India, and its members coordinate on security issues. However, BRICS is not a formal military alliance. Its strength lies in strategic cooperation and collective bargaining on the world stage. The group's growing influence comes from economic statecraft, joint investment projects, and unified diplomacy, allowing member states to negotiate better terms in global trade and finance. For Hungary, engagement with BRICS offers new opportunities: access to fast-growing markets, diversified sources of energy, and capital investment, often with fewer political conditions or requirements than those imposed by the EU. The EU's prosperity is closely linked to compliance with its rules and standards, which can sometimes be restrictive. In contrast, BRICS emphasizes non-interference in domestic affairs, offering economic partnerships with greater flexibility and fewer strings attached. As global economic power gradually shifts from Europe to Asia, Hungary is positioning itself to benefit from this transition, betting that the future of power, wealth, and opportunity lies increasingly to the east. Hungary's move is rooted in the Orbán Doctrine radical sovereignty, strategic promiscuity, and national survival. Orban sees supranational bodies as threats to national identity and freedom. Joining BRICS is a declaration of independence from Brussels' ideological constraints. Hungary's multi-vector policy seeks to profit by bridging East and West, attracting investment from all sides. Economic diversification is key. Hungary is reducing EU dependency by courting BRICS investment. Major projects, like Chinese-built battery plants, tie Hungary to the world's fastest-growing economies. Access to BRICS financial institutions hedges against European stagnation. Orban frames this as a fight for survival, drawing on Hungary's history of resisting outside domination. Joining BRICS is a bold attempt to secure Hungary's place in a new world order. Budapest's announcement triggered fury in Brussels and concern in Washington. EU leaders condemned Hungary's move as a breach of loyalty, with some calling for harsh penalties and others fearing escalation. Central and Eastern European states see it as a betrayal that weakens regional security. BRICS members welcomed Hungary, hailing it as proof of the bloc's growing appeal and multipolarity. Russia and China celebrated Orban's defiance of the West. The Global South sees Hungary's move as a symbol that alternatives to the Western order are possible. The decision boosts BRICS' prestige and may accelerate applications from other countries. Every nation is now re-examining its alliances. Hungary's shift is a calculated economic bet on the future. EU prospects look dim: demographic decline, high energy costs, and slow growth. BRICS nations are the engines of global growth, offering young populations and expanding markets. Membership gives Hungary access to new export markets and capital, especially through the new development bank. Energy security is a key motive. BRICS includes the world's top energy producers, but the risks are huge. Hungary's economy is still deeply tied to the EU, and a harsh EU response could be devastating. Hungary is gambling it can balance both blocs without being pushed out. Whether this is genius or folly will define Hungary's future. Hungary's BRICS entry is a watershed, signaling a fundamental shift in global power. The EU now faces a member formally aligned with a rival coalition, a structural break, not a spat. Orban has shown a nation can exist within the West while embracing the East. For Hungary, it's a sovereign bet on a multipolar era and the dynamism of the global South. For BRICS, it's a strategic victory and validation of their vision. The West must choose: punish Hungary and risk crisis, or tolerate dissent and risk further fractures. Hungary's move is either an isolated anomaly or the first crack in a much larger fracture, heralding a new, multipolar world.